What up? What up?
Hello.
Happy everybody is inside of here. I am extremely excited. If you haven't been to one of our webinars in the past, I'm always excited to have people here engaged with us in the chat, through the polls, in conversation. So this feels more like a discussion and more beneficial and effective for everybody that's on the call compared to just me and Jason talking at you guys for 45 minutes to an hour, right? I know we've all been to webinars where it's just like that monotone person, just like wah 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 wah, and the Charlie Brown teacher. So hopefully that's not what you guys experience today. It's more so, again, us to have a conversation. And I think Jason already started a poll, right?
Yeah,
looks like the poll's already fresh out there. So here's what we always like to find out: who are we talking to and where they are? Like, where are you guys located, right? So on the poll, if you represent the East Coast, that's where I'm at. Whoop, whoop. You can definitely check that on the poll itself. I guess Jason officially goes by Midwest or Central is kind of where he positions himself inside of Ohio. I still kind of think it's East Coast, but it's
Eastern
bias.
time zone. Eastern time zone. It's the Midwest.
So, right.
Heart of America, all right?
I'll take it. So if you're in there, let us know, right? If you're international, here's what I heard. I heard our international team has been crushing it as far as having great conversations with a lot of our partners, a lot of different customers that's international. And I hear there's going to be a lot of people that's going to be on the call today from Ecuador and some people from the UK. And that's very exciting because I know you guys are in completely different time zones. So yeah. I'm happy that you're taking some of your free time to spend with us during this discussion today. So that's going to be fun because people are already actually letting us know they are international. If you are international, let us know where you're at or where you're joining us from in the chat. We want to see where you guys are actually at. Oh, look, we got Bolivia. Let's go, Tapia. I love it. I love it. And that's hopefully this is giving you guys a little bit of an inclination of how engaged we want you guys to be throughout this entire conversation. Because like I said, I don't want it to be like us talking to a screen the entire time, but instead what makes these webinars, I think, more effective is the more that we can engage with you all so that we talk about the things that is important for you guys on the call. That's the benefit of being in the room instead of being like one of the slackers and catching this like on the replay. It's because you get all the questions that you need answered right here live with me and Jason. So hey, and we got Christian in here from Ecuador. There we go. Ecuador. Look at
that. Yep.
I love it. Perfect. So here's what I want to do. As we're letting people inside the room, we're going to probably give another 3 minutes or so to let people inside of here. If you're just joining us, you probably got a poll that automatically popped up on your screen. Just let us know where you're from. And from there, we're going to probably start rolling into things, giving you guys a little bit of background on some device control, because that's what we all signed up for, right? Talking about how to properly manage encrypted USBs, because that's important today, right?
Yeah.
So with that, before we start getting into a lot of things overall, let me go back to the chat real quick. And
yeah,
I was going
to go ahead and say just one thing. For questions, if you could please use the Q&A section. It does pop up on our screen, so instead of just looking at chat, I'll know that you actually have a question in the Q&A, and we can answer it accordingly. Anything that we don't cover or get answered, we will get answered to you either way. So please, any questions, throw it in that so we know how to segment and get you the correct answers.
Absolutely. And then with that as well, I would strongly encourage you guys to stay around until the very last portion of the call, because we have a pretty hefty chunk of time set aside for Q&A. So if you want to hear your questions answered live, obviously you want to stay around for that. But that does not mean we won't take time to check the Q&A while we're going through the information and things that we have prepared for you. Because again, we don't want it to be something that just seemed like a canned presentation. We wanted to kind of be able to flex and mold with some of the people that are already in the room, right? So like Jason said, just make sure you put those questions that you actually have inside the Q&A section, but also blow up the chat. I'm a huge fan when people like blow up the chat and it goes so fast that you can't even read it because everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. And this is everything that's happening. And everybody is like, oh, if you're ready to hit go, hit yes, like type yes in the chat. And then it's like all these different answers of yes that's inside the chat, right? And that's always exciting, man. Webinars that take that kind of excitement or that kind of enthusiasm in throughout the conversation, I think always has a bigger impact for everybody that's involved, not just DataLocker as a team, but for everybody that's also a part of this experience as well. So with that, I think it makes sense to at least start introducing ourselves, right? Jason, kind of getting some things out of the way, some of the natural things of a webinar, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, we could. That's what most people do, right?
Seems like the logical thing to do. And for everybody, like I said, that's joining us right now, this is what we're going to be talking about. It's Safe Console. We're going to be talking about device control and the use cases of what that looks like, right? Because here's the cool thing. In our environment, we've learned that our product is not just designated to one individual industry or one sector, right? It's applicable across multiple different industries, multiple different sectors. Now, the benefit of being on a webinar like this is to be able to have conversations specific to your sector, right? You can ask specific questions about things that's happening inside of your neck of the woods, so that we can have specific conversations about that as well.
And I will say real quick, talking about sectors and different, because we do have some international folks, some of the things for them are going to be different, right? If we take a look at the poll before we stop it real quick, we have a real good mix across the United States and have a lot of people, 25% saying international. So that's awesome. And we do know certain international laws and stuff are different then they might be here, and we can also answer those questions as well. So I'm going to go ahead and end this poll now and let you continue on. But I just want to bring up that we do have a good mix of people here that hopefully generate a lot of good questions for us.
Absolutely. I just got a private message as well. India. We got another person, Ravi Kumar, that's over in India. So Ravi, I don't know if you meant to send me that privately or if you wanted to engage with everybody, but make sure that setting down the bottom of your chat is set to everybody if you want everybody to know.
Well, he just sent it privately, and then you called him out. Maybe he didn't want anyone to know.
I want him to feel disincluded, right? Like I want to make sure he was involved in the conversation. Everybody knows. But with that, like I said, I think having a conversation like that today, I think is going to be very beneficial for everybody that's here because we've done a fair amount of research, found of understanding some of these different markets and how these different industries look, there we go. Robbie put the thumbs up. Look at that.
My man.
Appreciate it, Robbie. So like I said, from there, I would love to start getting into a little bit of the thought process of just behind who we are real quick. And then from there, we'll start getting into some of the details, the information behind device control, what we think some of the best practices are, some things to look out for. And then from there, again, getting into that Q&A session, okay? So again, some of the formal things. If you don't know who I am by now, my name is Eddie Thomason. I am an endpoint protection specialist here at DataLocker. It's basically a fancy term of saying that I love to help you secure your endpoints, right? Whether that be USBs or whether it be through your port policy and controls, which we can talk about on a separate webinar, which is our port blocker webinar. But I'll let Jason go ahead and introduce himself as well.
And Alvaro, hello from Ecuador. Good to see you. My name is Jason Swaney. I'm a security solutions engineer here at DataLocker. I am from, as Eddie mentioned, Ohio. Which is the Midwest. And I'm here to help with the technical pieces of the conversation and really give you some good insight of what I've seen, what we've seen, and hopefully engage you to tell us what you've seen, right? So we can all share our knowledge. So
absolutely. And again, just to emphasize this is more so, hopefully this is going to be different from most webinars that you've been a part of. And Lindsay, I know you've been here multiple times for multiple different webinars. So if you can tell people in the chat if I am making this up, you can do that. I'm gonna put you on the spot. But the thought process here is that me and Jason, we try to go through this as kind of more so like a conversational style instead of us just, like I said, talking at you the entire time, which usually makes that different from the average webinar, so that you guys can provide feedback, input, so that that conversation can change based off of what you guys want to hear, right? So that's what's really important moving forward from here. Now, with that being said,
that was a real. He's making up. That was a real nice way of saying we love to spitball. Is it?
This is true. This is true. We put it like this. We like improv. So
Yeah.
if you got some things that you want to throw our way that makes sense for us to cover inside of this conversation, we definitely will. And because of our great improv skills, if we need to make, to shift it or whatever else it may need to be, we will, and probably shoot you a message individually. But with that said, I do want to give at least a broad overview of what SafeConsole is. It's really the staple of what we do here at DataLocker as our flagship central management platform. Obviously, this particular webinar, we're going to be talking a whole lot about that left-hand side, the bottom left-hand side when we talk about device control in itself, because that's the webinar that you guys signed up for, right? So we're going to spend a whole lot of time talking about that, why it's important, things to look out for. But we do host webinars on some of these other 3 topics as well, right? We talk about anti-malware, how that associates to SafeConsole. We talk about SafeCrypt, and we talk about our infamous port blocker, which is a lot of where people like Lindsay and a lot of other people have seen me and Jason multiple times before, right? But essentially, SafeConsole is a centralized managed platform that allows you to really have a true understanding of where your data is and how you can access or kill that data remotely, no matter where that data is or where that data is located, or if it was lost, whatever else it may be, right? So with that, I think what we're going to do is show a quick video, because the video will give you guys a good intro into device control in itself. And I think it's a very relatable video. I feel like we've all kind of been in this type of scenario before, but I'll let you guys be the judge of that as we get through it. So what do you guys think? That was absolutely incredible. I feel like if we were in a conference room or something at the moment, like this is when the crowd goes like, ah, that was awesome, right?
I thought it was awesome.
If only we can hear the applause that happens within a webinar room, like that would be absolutely incredible.
Yep, the 80 cent buys. Yep. It's awesome.
I love it. So let me go ahead. I got to share my screen again, guys. So bear with me for 1 second. But again, hopefully that gives you guys a really good insight into what we're going to talk about today, right? Because device control is a very important topic. It's something that we come across majority of the time when people, they think about DataLocker, or they say, hey, we want to learn about what you guys do with the solution that you provide. Most of them are saying, hey, we know that we need to standardize some type of encrypted drive, and we just want a way to remotely manage them. Like, is there any way that we can, perform password resets? Is there any way that we can do some different types of things with that drive that's going to allow me to have the peace of mind that my data really is secure, whether it's lost, stolen, brute force actions, whatever, right? I just want to make sure that data is secure. So that's what we're going to talk about today. A lot of this, like I said, I'm going to be pinging back and forth to Jason to kind of share some of his thoughts, his insights and things from that perspective. But let me go ahead and I'm going to move on to this next screen. And here's the first thought that I want us to kind of ponder and stew on a little bit, right? Because we want to understand what those challenges are with unmanaged USB devices, right? I think the industry as a whole, we've kind of come into this idea or this general consensus of like USBs are bad, right? But the thought process is why? What is the challenge behind it? What's the thought process behind it? And this, I'm gonna deflect to you, Jason. Start sharing us some of the things that you found inside of the space and your experience within the cybersecurity space.
Sure. Well, USBs are bad. Unmanaged USBs are bad. I was thinking about this yesterday, and I was thinking back to when I was in college, and I remember spending like $100 on a USB flash drive that was 256 megs. And then come, 10, 12, 14 years later, however long it's been, for $10, you can get like 10 of these for $20, 64 gig. You know how much data that is? And to not have any management and how much someone can take from you. And it's just astonishing with the price and then how much data we can actually hold and the types of things that someone could leave the company with on that. So the big challenges here is you have no visibility of what happens with this device. Sure, there's some things, if you really dig into like your registry and stuff like that you can find what's been plugged in, what's not. But other than that, they're just so universal and cheap now that you can literally do anything with them. And they're scary. And they're scary because you could get something unintentionally and infect your network. You use it at home, you infect your network at work, and then you're the one that got ransomware for everyone. And trust me, you don't want to be that guy. Luckily, I've never been that guy, but I've had to deal with the guy, right?
That's never a fun conversation. I don't think it's ever like, hey, buddy, I gotta slap your wrist about this.
It's not a slap on the wrist. Yeah, it's not a slap on the wrist kind of thing. So
right.
The big challenge with it is that there is no management. Same with it. I mean, believe it or not, you buy desktops today, so they still have DVD drives on it. That's bad. I mean, it's bad because it's not managed. It's bad because it's not encrypted. Outside of the workplace, what are we going to do, right? I mean, I use them outside of the workplace all the time with things that are not relative to work. But when it comes to work, you best believe I'm using a managed device.
Absolutely. So with that, here's what I'm going to do, guys. We're going to slap another poll up on the screen. And again, this is an opportunity for you guys to engage. Let us know that you're in the room, all those different things, because we want to know, right? What's the biggest concern that you have had with USB devices? We're just curious, right? I know on the polls, you got some different answers that's there. Whatever you answer or whatever is kind of like the highest percentage is usually where we spend the majority of our time as far as in the following conversation. But if you have some different, unique things that you want to share inside of, in the chat, feel free to put it in the chat, right?
Yeah.
We're always open to learning. We're always like wanting to learn new things or different maybe challenges, obstacles that people have run into themselves so that we can be better, right? We can kind of go back and formulate answers to these unique and complex situations that a lot of people sometimes come to us with and be like, hey, can you fix this? They're like, I don't know, but we're going to go figure that part out.
Well, and it's unfortunate that a lot of times it takes one of these events to happen to you. It's kind of like the myth is that I'll never get hacked. It's not you won't. It's not if, it's when, because it will happen. And a driving factor is the same for USB management. Plenty of other tools too. It's not if, it's when. When is one of these things going to happen to you? and could you have prevented it instead of doing it after the fact? Because after the fact is painful.
Exactly. And it looks like a lot of people are concerned about insider threats and data theft, right? We got some people that are at accidental data loss, and then we got some external threats as well, right? And we got some pretty cool. I know Jason, he always comes to these conversations with some really unique articles to talk about some of these different issues and concerns that people have had inside of their own environments and their own organizations. But I know when it comes to insider threats, I know Jason has a pretty unique one that he wants to talk about as well, which we will get into. But I appreciate you guys for engaging. Let me just look back at the chat. Did anybody put anything different inside the chat as well?
Misplacement of sensitive research data.
Yep.
That would classify as accidental data loss. Researchers who want to transport regulated data, absolutely. Mike, I did get your message there privately. Go ahead and just shoot us an email, or we'll make sure to follow up with you. Shoot an email.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely. So those and so for those that are here that have seen our port blocker webinar, we talk about the exact same three threats because the two are 100% hand in hand with each other. No doubt about it. So
absolutely.
Let me go ahead and end this poll for now.
Absolutely. And let's talk about that very first thing, man. Let's talk about some of the insider threats, because I know this was the least voted for on the poll, but it is a very important topic, right? I mean, like, we've heard horror stories about people just leaving drives outside of like out in the parking lots and stuff like that. We've seen, I mean, all kinds of different things. And we've had clients come to us and say, hey, we got a person that's like, hey, they're ransoming $1 million for me to stick in a bad USB drive, right? And that's an employee, right? It's an external threat, but it's kind of run through an employee. So like, we hear these horror stories and stuff like this all the time, but I know you have something specific that you want to share with everybody. So I'm gonna let you go ahead and share that.
Yeah. So from an external threat standpoint, absolutely. There's not just the person being malicious, right? It's a malicious person offering a person to be malicious, or ransoming them in a different fashion, right? Not necessarily on the technical side, right? I just wanted to, the one that I found for this one is more of a kind of the things you want to do, but they brought up a real good thing here, and I'm going to look off the screen while I read it. Organizations spend a lot of time and money on high-tech walls designed to keep out malware, but lately hackers have been deploying a simple tool to breach those walls: the humble USB drive. This is why I like this one, because of the verbiage that went with it. This was published October 19th of this year. Data from the 2022 Honeywell Industrial Cybersecurity USB Threat Report shows that an eye-opening 52% of malware is now designed specifically to piggyback its way inside targets on USB devices and other removable media. This is up from the 32% found by the previous year's report, and up significantly from 19% in 2020. That is a lot, right? So cybercriminals are definitely evolving and finding new attack vectors. Clearly, they've learned removable media is the way to go. And it's critical that organizations recognize this threat, right? Because it can, all of it can just live on this little device and just piggyback to the second that you plug it in.
Yep. And think about, like, that spike, right? The spike that happened in 2020. I mean, there's this little thing called COVID that happened in 2020.
Yeah.
And we think about like how the workplace itself has changed, right? And how me and Jason right now, we are working remotely, right? To where our organization is based out of Kansas, but we're working remotely. We have access to company computers. We have access to company data, things that's on that computer, right? So if we were to, again, have access to this scenario where we're plugging in some type of malware driver and things like that, it can still spread despite us being in remote locations, right? So that's something to definitely be aware of, because again, that spike, people aren't, I guess the hackers, let's call them the hackers, right? Let's just call them the bad guys, because you could be a good hacker. I say the bad guys, right?
The black hats, not the white hats. Yeah.
I say the bad guys from there, they're essentially like, I understand how to social engineer some different types of attacks to get to people while they're working remotely and they're not going to the office all the time. Maybe they're not getting the daily reminder from the cybersecurity team. Maybe they're not seeing all their coworkers and that's keeping them accountable, right? So it leaves them more susceptible to attacks like this because you're just not constantly reminded. And the things that we don't get reminded as people are the things that we forget or like our defenses fall or whatever else it may be. And that causes issues, right? At the end of the day, people will be people, right? So that is usually the biggest threat in itself. So with that, I do want to move on to this next threat, which is what you guys all wanted to spend the majority of the time on, which is that insider threats and data theft. And again, I know Jason has a really cool story. So Jason, you take that one too, man.
Yeah. So the one that you're referring to is the next slide, but is for active. But this is a good one too. It is by a very large soda company or pop company that rhymes with Loca-Lola. You'll get the link in the thing, but we are issuing data breach notices to about 8,000 individuals whose personal information was included in computer files that a former employee took with them when he left the company. The type of stolen and exposed data varies per employee, the spokesperson told us. And there's and they provided some free identity monitoring for 1 year to affected employees. So there's more to the story, and I definitely encourage you to read through the whole story because there's actually a lot here. But essentially what happened is they found it on a personal hard drive, a USB external drive. That easy. I mean, he left, he grabbed information. I believe towards the end it says why he grabbed it, but just the fact that there was no control, there was no policy in place. Now, of course, these things can go hand in hand with our port blocker software, but as well as standalone or standardizing a specific type of USB drive so you can monitor that type of activity and get alerted when things like that are written to the drives. Right? That's a huge advantage to have your SIM go, oh, this type, something that says financials is being copied to a drive, right? Now, it's a very general, basic message for it, but things of that nature to go, hey, this doesn't look good, right? And you control the drive. It's not a personal drive. You control the drive. So if they leave, you know, you can send a detonate. Or a factory reset, right? So that was the one that I found for this. I thought it was very interesting. It is a nice because there's a few links in here, so it's a little bit of a read. But I wanted to bring that one up for insider threats.
Absolutely. And just so you guys know, all these stories that me and Jason are talking about today, you will get a separate email, like a follow-up email, where you can read these stories on your own, so you know that we're just not pulling these stories out of the air, right? But it's actual credible sources that are sharing these stories so that you guys can, again, do your own research and have thought process there. But the thing that I do want to add to Jason's point is the fact that, again, you control that drive, right? So when you think about insider threats and data theft, it's very important to understand that with unencrypted, unmanaged USB drives, or just unmanaged USB in general, let's not even talk about the encryption part because that's a whole different conversation, right? But if you have an unmanaged USB, and you have, again, employee turnover, you have different situations where, you know, you got a disgruntled employee, or maybe you just got an employee that left, but their drive was lost after they was gone. Like all these different scenarios that comes up, but it's your company data that is on that drive. Wouldn't it be cool to literally just hit a button and know that that data is never going to be able to be seen or heard of or touched by anyone else ever again, right? That is the simplicity of device control when it comes to the DataLocker and the SafeConsole management platform. You literally hit a button and that data is now safe. It is either gone. You can have it to where the device is completely wiped. It's never going to be able to, you know, function as a drive again. Or you can set it to where that people will just not be able to access it because they just don't have the credentials, right?
Yeah, so or they're not within their defined network.
That is true. There's multiple ways.
Yeah. We have so many different ways of doing it. It's amazing. And Matt, it's funny that you bring that up, because that's the story that I use for the next part that everyone seems to love.
Absolutely. That's a great segue, Matt. We appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah.
Because that last thing that we talk about is accidental data loss, right? I mean, again, I talked about this on the first slide, but people are going to be people, right? We all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. Things happen all the time. And it's not something that we do intently, like with the intent of getting things lost, but we lose things. It's a matter of life, right? So with that, let's go ahead and share that funny story.
It's not so. All right. I found
I
found a different link that'll go out this time. They're not as mean on the guy as the other ones. So as Matt posted, that's a CBS version. I have one from endpointprotector.com. In June, the city of Amagasaki, I believe is how it said. I'm probably really botching that name. City in Japan.
Yep.
Hired a company to analyze and oversee COVID tax relief information for its citizens. Well, one of the workers decided to copy the data, right? And I believe on 2 flash drives or 1 flash drive without permission. And that's one part of the story, and then take it to another office in a different location to continue working on it.
Right.
I'll play it, just, hey, this will be easier. I got it. I'm going to take it with me. Well, they had close to 500,000 residents information on that. He went out to a bar, and this is where people really lean that. Right? Yeah, this is where it depends on the story you read. Like really, like he couldn't remember his name. It just he went out, right, and he had his USB in his bag. Lost the bag. Okay. Luckily, there were no reports of data leakage, other than the fact that it was lost, right? And that there was no foul play. Like he had no bad intentions, right? So how do you protect something like that and make sure that data doesn't get accessed? You have a managed encrypted drive. You get it's simple as a password, and I'll even one up that Annie and say, and anyone in our company will say this, is try to hack one. Buy one of our drives, try to hack it, see how far you get. More than just getting past the password, right? It is very difficult to do. That's why we have certifications and so many different just so many different certifications, right? Is that it is very, very, very hard to do, if not near impossible. Now, I'm never going to say not impossible. Anything's possible. That's why hackers exist. But that's why we're always continually growing and strengthening our product as well. So
absolutely,
I've never found the name of the guy, and I've done that on purpose because I don't want to ever say his name. I feel really bad for the guy that happened. But it was an accident. It was an accident, and it was a lot of good information for like a hacker to have. But luckily, never came to fruition. So absolutely.
But it's one of those things. It makes it easy when you start to humanize the things that happen on a daily basis, right? Like most people, like you mentioned earlier, Jason, like, I'll never be the one that gets hacked, right? And it's you could be the most cautious person. You could be, the security professional that's 100% like all pessimistic, right? Like I have my own little bubble and this is my space, but mistakes happen, right? Like human error exists. So it could be, from a story like this, maybe it is, you just got a drive that's in your pocket. You didn't know it was there. Maybe you pulled out your wallet, boom, flash drive's out, right? It's all kinds of different situations like this, scenarios like this, where again, it would be so simple to hit a button and that information is gone, right? You don't never have to worry about if they found the drive, what's going to happen if they found the drive, should you be afraid? Is a leak going to happen? No, because you hit a button and it's gone. Right.
Yeah. The second they plug it in.
It's as simple as that.
Yep. The second they plug it in, everything's gone. This doesn't work. I don't know what to do. right? So,
exactly.
which really leads into our next poll question. Is how do you guys do it? If you do it, right? So I'm going to throw this poll up here.
Absolutely.
How do you manage your USB devices currently? Now, because I know that there's some current customers in the chat. We didn't use Safe Console as an option.
Absolutely, but you can put that in the chat, okay?
yeah. If you guys can shout us out all you want. So
100%.
A few options. We don't. That's why I'm here. You know what? You're a perfect audience. Manual tracking. Just using an asset sheet and hoping that you can keep up with the manual entry and auditing from like a registry tool that pulls all the information from every computer that you have to sift through and make sure that that's the only thing that's being plugged in, right? Do you use a third-party tool? Is it us? Is it not us, right? We don't. It doesn't have to be us. We are not the only one who have things similar to this. We are the only one that have a full management solution. There are some other ways to do it, but we really want to focus on how you're doing it and what you think would be a good way.
Exactly. I do want to address this real quick. Amanda, you are 100% correct when you say that you got to be very careful inside of higher education. And that's why it's two different features within our policy. You can actually set something into detonate to where as though that drive is completely gone as paperweight, or you can set it into like a disabled mode where essentially the data is still there, but you cannot access that drive. The drive, when you plug it in, you won't be able to even enter a password or anything from that perspective. The drive at that point is dead to the user until, as an administrator, you put that back into a ready, like end-use type of state, right? And we can talk a little bit more about that, even if we go into, a specific product demo things from that perspective. But you are 100% on point with that, that you have to be careful. and we agree.
And so I think I missed the slide where I was supposed to give my corny detonation joke, but you do have to be careful with our detonation feature. Because it does render the drive completely useless. I always stress this point. Don't try to RMA it. We can't fix it either. I mean, it's literally turning it into a paperweight. It wipes all the firmware out. So short of the smoke coming out of it or saying this device will, and actually explode, it does render it completely useless. Okay.
Yep. So that's definitely something to be aware of, right? Because we won't want you to, turn your nice drive into an expensive paperweight at that point.
Yep. And that's one of the things when you come on board with us and we work through onboarding, we go through that with you. Is the use case there to have it set to detonate after so many passwords attempts, right? Or do you just want the ability to detonate on demand? And things of that nature. And we help guide you through that pending your use case, which is why, if you do sign up with us, we cover all of that in depth with you directly.
That is 100% true. So with that, here's what I want to do, because you guys did an incredible job of answering this poll. And I think, we love the fact that 60% of you guys said, hey, listen, that's why I'm here, right? Like it's the whole reason that I'm taking a little bit of time out of my day to learn, which we 100% appreciate. And we're going to talk about that, right? We're going to talk about what we feel as though the solution is, right? Like, how do you go from, hey, I have no idea what the heck I need to do with USBs, or even being like Mark, like Mike, who's inside the comments and said most companies just say, hey, no USBs, period, and they don't care how that affects the business. Then we created this solution that really fits right inside of this niche of, hey, our end users need USBs. It's a valuable part of their workflows and things that they do on a daily basis. But how do I have more control over them? And the answer is you manage them. And I'm going to let Jason expand on that.
Yeah, and so this time, we threw up other stats on the screen, and then I talked about a completely different story. I do actually want to pull this and read this one for you because I think it's extremely important. 31%, this is from Jason Bourne, not Jason Bourne, My mom told me she was reading the Bourne books when she was having me. That's how she named me Jason, by the way.
Fun facts.
Fun facts. 31% of IT decision makers noted that their organization now requires all data to be encrypted as standard, whether it's at rest or in transit. And that is very important with the hardware encryption piece of our drives, is that whether it's sitting in your drawer or you're one of those companies that you need to send firmware updates over the mail or images from specialized machines to other parts of the world in transit, it's encrypted, it's protected. It's not like it's not like UPS has ever lost your package, right?
Never.
I can't tell you any of them really. And it's one of those things. I think that number is going to constantly increase, whether it's the right thing to do for your business, which I think it is, or the government says you got to do it anyway. So there's certain compliances based on your business that you might as well get ahead of the bandwagon because it's coming.
Yep.
And not only that, cyber insurance is starting to require it as well.
Yep.
Yep.
And I will say, if there's anybody and we didn't create a poll for this, but if you're in the industry, if you're in the finance industry, banking, if that type of industry, I would love to know if you are. Put it in the chat, say yes, something like that, just so we can get an understanding. Because I don't know if you've been aware of this or if you've been told about it, whatever else it may be, but look up the SAFE rule, because there's a lot of changes coming in the year of 2023, which is quickly approaching at this point. And it talks a lot. There's a whole section that talks a lot about USB and having encrypted USBs if you are transporting any type of data amongst even internally or even to external sources, and some of the things that they're requiring as a part of that SAFE rule. It hasn't been changed in over, I think, 2 decades. However, the changes that they've made now are some really big changes. And we can make sure that we send out an article as well in the follow-up email to the webinar so that you can go through that at your own pace. But I highly encourage you to take a look at that, because it is very, very important information inside of there that will affect you immediately coming into the new year. So with that, here's what we want to go. Here's what we want to kind of really dive into, right? And really help you guys understand. Because at the end of the day, if you're not managing your USBs, you have no control. But when you are in a situation where you're utilizing SafeConsole, you're utilizing device control, it puts you as the admin in the control of any type of data that's inside of your environment. Now, how does that happen? A lot of that is, again, with the hardware that we use, right? When you talk about the USBs, you talk about the hard drives, everything's encrypted, everything's managed by SafeConsole from a DataLocker perspective, right? But the way that you also go about that, which we can have a completely different conversation about, is standardizing to those drives and then blocking any other type of drive to be able to be allowed inside of your environment. Now, again, that's the port blocker side of what we do at SafeConsole. It's not specific for what we are talking about today, but it is going to be another webinar that we do in the new year for those who want to be a part of that. Maybe you're just getting your feet wet, understanding what we do with device control. But with all that being said, I do want to switch this over to Jason and let him talk about the management piece of it and why it's important for you as the admin to have control over your USBs.
Yeah, absolutely. And the first one, I mean, I'm going to cover the points on the screen. They should be self-explanatory, but I want to drive home the importance of complete visibility. Yep. You know what's going on. You have a pane of glass where you can see what is happening. You can see what types of files users are creating, moving, deleting. You can see if they're messing up their password 10 times over, right? You can see these types of things, as well as when you're registering these devices, they're automatically essentially being put into a sort of asset control system, right? You can export this. If you're an enterprise customer, you can do some API calls to pull it into some sort of asset management. You can do a lot of different things, but you know what you have without having to go through the manual process of checking everything in, writing it down, putting it in Excel or Google Sheet or whatever, and hoping that that process is followed. And that alone gives you the peace of mind. And the peace of mind to not only have that at a basic level, but then to also know that you can preset policies that if a user does something outside of what you defined, they can't use the device. It's disabled. Excuse me 1 second. That was really loud. Forgot to turn that off. The ability to, if a drive goes missing, to mark it as lost, to send a reset, to send a self-destruct or a detonate, right? Just the ability to have that at your fingertips, at least for me, as an IT administrator, as someone who was a sysadmin for many, many years, wish I had, just I've known about it and I've seen about it and started dabbling with it prior to joining up with DataLocker. So it was kind of a perfect timing for me in my career to come on board, because I was really starting to get into that with my end users. So the peace of mind I would have had for years had I looked into this earlier would have been very nice. There's other things at night that could have been keeping me up instead of worrying about attacks or losing data. So
exactly, 100%. And it's important, man. If you're like me, if you're my personality style, you just like to be in control. I don't know if anybody else is like that. Like I just want to have control. Like if I'm in a car, I'm the one driving. I don't want to be the one in the passenger seat. It's just how my mind works. And I think most IT professionals are very similar in that aspect, right? It's like, hey, yes, I want to give the users the ability to do their job. I want them to have that flexibility to not interfere with their workflow. But at the same time, I want to be able to control what data is going to be left or creeped out of or leaked out of this organization, right? And when I say leaked, I mean just transported in any way, shape, or form, right? Whether it's extracted from their workstations and then moved from there to a USB and then USB into wherever their home environments are and things like that. I just want to be able to understand, see, visualize, understand what's happening with that data at all times, right? I want control of that. And I think most of you guys will share that same thought process when it comes to data in the IT security or cybersecurity, IT security as well, right? So here's what you look for, right? When you think about like, okay, Eddie, Jason, you sold us. We need to have some type of device control, right? We got to have something in place to where as though we can completely manage the drives that we have access to. Well, it's important to have some type of criteria to understand what to look for in a complete solution, right? So with that, let's talk about some of...
Go back one.
Yeah, my bad. I'm going too far way. Into the weeds.
There you go. So we didn't actually list them out. I can kind of go through what I would look for. Now, come on. It's a webinar. I'm going to gear this towards us. It's a little salesy. But let's think about it. What would you want? What are some basic things? Remote password reset. It's not like anyone forgets a password. Who does that? I mean, I don't, but no, but seriously, I mean, how many users forget a password? If you put a password on this device and you have no way to help them through a password reset remotely, it's like then they got to send the drive back to you. You hope you remember the password, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a very basic one. Right. Another very nice one is geolocation. When this device is plugged in outside your network, if you allow that, you want to know where, right? You want to know where. We tell you where. Remotely factory reset, remotely disable, or of course, I didn't miss it. I actually spoke too soon, or remotely detonate. Right. So I'll spare the Mission Impossible joke again. Whatever. And you want logging. You really want logging. You want to know what's happening in real time. Yep. And the other thing I'll add on to that is having it in a central place via on-prem or cloud makes it so you can touch all of your drives everywhere, right? Like I know some people do, is it Bluetooth management of their devices? They have a Bluetooth module and they control it with their phone. Well, that's great, but if you're going to manage a fleet of 1,000 USB drives, you can't just walk around and try to connect to each one while
let me scan this.
Let me scan it. You got to be in range. Yep. And that, to me is, that's great if for your one USB drive for yourself at your home, right? And Well, I won't go there, but there's other ways of doing that, right? And
Yep.
and to be able to be sitting at home, having a remote workforce, having a fleet of people all over the world, and
Yep.
being able to control that from right here, I think is the most important thing, and one of the main reasons why we developed it as is.
Absolutely.
And
It's
that, yeah, I think that's what kind of brings everything together.
100%. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we have a solution that allows you to, that's scalable, right? There's no matter how many drives that you have on hand or how many end users that needs a drive, you want that to be able to be scalable and simple for you to use as an admin, right? That's very important. And I think one of the other things that Jason said that I just want to call out here is the fact that the remote managed system and being able to perform factory resets, password resets, detonates, all from a remote location, not needing to be in close proximity to the drive, not needing to be, I guess, directly logged into anybody's endpoints or anything from that perspective to be able to perform these remote actions. It's an automatic response based off of a button that you can push no matter where you are in the world that pushes commands to the drives that is SafeConsole ready, right?
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry, I want to, because Mike, you made it so I don't have your passwords. I said I don't forget my passwords. I have no way of accessing your devices, but I have seen sysadmins who do keep their passwords on an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. Oh yeah, you're just busting my chops. I got it. I don't have any of that information, but I have gone to a company where the sysadmin had everyone's Office 365 login. They had everyone's Active Directory credentials. Those users were not allowed to change their password unless he knew the password. He would give them their password. And I could see a sysadmin doing that with a USB device, and that is not the proper way to do it. So thank you for the call out, Mike, but I am gonna save myself on that one.
Yep. And again, that's also just not scalable, right? Taking it back to the same point. I mean, at that point, if your sysadmin, God forbid something happens to him, right? Like, how am I supposed to know those passwords?
Yeah, because he password protected his Excel document. And gave no one access.
Exactly.
It's a world of hurt, right?
100%. So that's, at the end of the day, those are the things that you 100% want to look for, right? I mean, if you want to put bullet points to it, you want to find something that's very scalable. It's very easy to use. So scalability is one, ease of use is another, right? And then something that would completely just give you that peace of mind, right? The features that allows you to have that peace of mind, that remote password reset, that remote data wipe, reassigning drives should you have to move drives between individual employees and users, maybe within a lab, right? For all of my manufacturing people, scientific people, they're in a lab, and maybe you have a couple of users that have to share a drive because of data research and things that they're pulling images off of machines. We have use cases like that comes across our desk all the time, right? And again, I haven't found or known of any other or any other solution that allows you to accomplish what you can accomplish with a SafeConsole ready encrypted USB that is remotely managed by SafeConsole.
A lot of SafeConsole device control. So let's open it up. I think we've done enough talking. Let's let you guys talk a little bit. I mean, other than Mike and Lindsay, they're in it. What is our international people's thoughts? What are you guys thinking? What do you got questions on?
Absolutely. Ravi, where you at? I also want to shout out Matt, because I know Matt is here from Hologic. And I know they're talking. Matt was in conversation with Bobby. Bobby's one of our internal guys, and they're working on the project right now, which is incredible. And I'm glad you were able to make it, Matt. So if you got questions, thoughts, concerns, because I think you just recently got a drive.
Yes, sir.
So if you got questions about that, feel free to let us know.
Yeah, funny enough, it's complete sidetrack, but I've actually worked with and installed a Hologic system before. What That's exactly awesome. It was, I don't remember, but it was a few years ago.
I love it. I do see a question here from Ravi. Look at that, Ravi coming in hot in the Q&A section. For everybody that cannot see the Q&A, it says the encryption supports. The encryption supports is AES 256. Can we have our own algorithm of encryption is required?
So at this time, no. I can see why that's been useful. I've actually talked to at RSA in San Francisco, the conference. I actually talked to someone who was asking a similar thing, and we could definitely add that as a feature request because I can see why that would be different. Now, there's a few caveats to that because for us to retain our certifications, it has to match a very specific thing. So it might not be a completely certified drive if we were to allow something like that. But that is definitely a great one for us to take back to the devs if that use case is there to that's scalable, right? Yeah, exactly. From Mike, conflict with FIPS, like 100% there'd be a conflict there. But that probably is something we could get on, on the roadmap.
Correct.
There's a way that the admin cannot see what files cannot see. You can do that based on the level using custom roles. But you can't hide it in the log. So if you're a super admin, you will be able to see that. But if you don't want them to see the logs, that's a very unique use case. To get into that further, you know how to get a hold of us, Lindsay. Yes. We can hop on the phone and check it out in the dashboard. Yep. Can any 100%. Of your drives act as a NAS or a shared drive on a network? Once it's unlocked, yes, as long as you don't have a like an inactivity lock enabled in your policy. In theory, yeah, you could. We would recommend one of our larger devices. So we do have a device. You got one.
I got it. Yep. Hold on.
Where'd mine go? Yeah, the DL4 that goes up
These
to
guys.
Yep, in that same form factor, 15.3 terabytes.
Yep.
You could also use that, and this is more of a use case that we see
the comparison.
Yeah.
Side by side.
You could plug that into like the back of a NAS or the back of a server, and use that as your backup to device and take that as into your offsite storage, right? So that's encryption in transit. That's a better way to do it because when you think about NAS and shared drive on a network, you're going to be looking at slower speeds because of the hardware encryption. And you can also, well, it would be slower, but we do have another product which we didn't cover today called SafeCrypt, where we can create virtually encrypted drives in your network on a shared, so on a NAS, on a server. That's software driven, and you won't experience like the slowness from the transferring to a USB drive or anything like that. So we have a better solution for that one, but it can be done. Yes.
Absolutely. I'm going back and I'm looking through the chat as well. Because I thought I saw a different question inside of here earlier.
Matt got his drives.
Matt did get his drive 20 minutes ago. Let's go. Shout out to FedEx or UPS, whoever it was that delivered it. Question from Kay. What happens once a drive is destructed? It can't be used for a different user?
Right. So there's a few. So there's detonate. That is what I assume you mean by destructed. No, it completely wipes our firmware off the device. It bricks the device. It can't even be used as a regular flash drive at that point.
Yep.
Yeah. You could do that's. You can send other commands such as disable, which will just disable the device, that if you do get the drive back, you can then re-enable and not lose the data.
Right.
And assign it to a different user. And then there, of course, is factory reset, which will send a reset command, which will be wiping the device, but you could then assign it back to your server and a different user. So there's a few different options based on the use case of what you're trying to do. It sounds like if in this scenario, if you wanted to keep the device or you were able to keep the device and you want to reuse it, you would either use disable or factory reset, depending if you wanted the data on it or not.
Absolutely.
Yes, the DL4 will make a very nice paperweight, a very expensive one.
Yes, that is very true, Mike. I love it. Always love when you're in here and participate, Mike. It's always fun.
You did have a question, yeah. Oh, I think I covered it earlier. You said we can have a chat. Definitely. Just we'll shoot you an email later to get something back on the schedule.
Absolutely. So with that, I know we're coming up. You got 1 minute from the top of the hour. Obviously this has been an incredible time. I had a lot of fun. I don't know if you guys had a lot of fun. If you did have a lot of fun, actually do me a favor, humor us and put yes or fun or just exclamation points inside of the chat just to kind of sign that out, right? Like, oh, this is absolutely fun. Looks like we did get another question that came in from Ravi though. Can we create a backup of data copied on USB, synchronizing to my cloud storage as a what? Now, I feel like this is a Jeopardy question. As a
who is DL4?
I think you just hit the enter button way too quick.
Yeah. So either way you think about it, it's encrypted when it's on the device, and then if you synchronize it to your cloud storage, it's going to unencrypt when it's being transferred over, depending on what that cloud storage looks like. The other thing with SafeCrypt is you can do that in cloud storage. It doesn't just have to be on like a server internally. You can do it with Google Drive. You can do it with OneDrive, SharePoint, and a few others. As long as you can map it to your computer, we can then send it and encrypt it that way. So we can do hand in hand. Robbie, definitely. So I'm going to have Eddie throw up the offer. Yeah. Definitely sign up for this. I believe if you were working with Romaine, we will get things going with you and get a demo to go over that specific use case.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm glad. That was a great, again, segue. Rafi, Matt, with the great segues. You guys helped us out a lot today.
Yeah, Matt. So Matt asked a question. He did ask it privately, so I do want to read it out loud. How does the device get the detonate or admin commands? Does it call home periodically upon insertion, etc.? Yes. So whenever the device is connected and there's an application that's written on a read-only partition on the drive called Unlocker. That's what you have to run to actually get to the part to where you're going to put in the password. It will just reach out and say, no, you're okay. and talk to the server and receive that command. Once it receives that command, it's going to detonate. Now, in the event of a pin pad device, before they can even get it work to connect, they got to enter the password in correctly. So before they can even get to that, if you have it set to like detonate on like a K350, they'll never even be able to get to the point where they connect it to the computer.
Correct. And Ryan, I just want to say we enjoyed you too, buddy. You said you enjoyed the session. We appreciate you. We enjoyed you too.
Yeah, absolutely.
The offer that you guys do see on the screen, it's an opportunity for you guys to take advantage of a 30-day trial session, essentially. And what we're going to do for you guys is essentially allow you guys to test SafeConsole, the device control features, as well as sending out a drive that makes sense for your use case. Okay. So if that's something that, once you guys book a demo, we have a conversation, talk through what drive would make sense. As you guys already saw, there's multiple different drives that we have access to with the Century Ones, the K350s, the DL4s, the H350s that we haven't even talked about. There's a lot of different options that would fit that, made for different people's use cases. So once we have that conversation, essentially what we're going to do is send you out a drive for you to test, as well as 30 days for you to test that drive with SafeConsole licenses. And you get 2 hours of professional service. So you're going to get somebody like Jason, one of our other sales engineers, to have a conversation with you all and really help you set up some of the best practices within the policy and really get you started on the right foot so that you can make sure that this solution will work inside of your environment or within your organization for the use case that you have forward. So I strongly
go ahead and click your screen one forward real quick.
Yep. Yeah,
there we go. So just as a follow-up, because Amanda asked us in chat, or I'm sorry, Angela. Will you put this presentation up on your site to review? We don't put them on the website, but we do send out the recording. So if you were registered, you will get the recording. Definitely book a demo with us. And also I want to mention that we will be sending out a free ebook along in the presentation as well. That is going to, it's called Winning the Ransomware War. And it does cover USB encryption, ransomware, and then of course how our products align with it. So you will be receiving that as well.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for, guys. We're here to be a service to you. We're here to be just to provide information, provide thought process so that you can make better decisions, right? At the end of the day, like Jason said, would we love for you guys to come on board and be a client of ours? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, what we're really passionate about in this project that we're doing with DataLocker of creating these webinar type of events is to truly educate. We want to educate people on some of the best practices that they can apply to USB and port controls inside of their organizations. Because we feel as though here at DataLocker, the majority of our time, I would say probably 99.9% of our time is spent on solving that problem. Now, it's a very small slice, I would say, a niche market of the entire DLP of what that all looks like, right? But when it comes to encrypted hard drives, remote management systems, and port policies, we feel as though we are the best of breed inside of that market, right? So from there, we think it's in our best interest to educate you guys on what we've understood based off of all the case studies and things that we've done with different clients that we have here, right? So with that, I do want to, again, the offer is going to stay up here for you guys to take advantage of it as we're wrapping this thing up and closing it down. Like I said, you're going to be able to connect with a sales engineer, most likely myself as well. It's going to be on that call to kind of help facilitate that conversation as well. But we appreciate you. We appreciate you coming to be a part of this conversation. We appreciate you all spending some time with us because we know that time is indeed valuable. And we appreciate that you took some of that time to have a conversation with us today about device control and how that could actually work inside of your environment.
And whenever you're ready to get in touch with us, we'll be here.
Absolutely. I will say, if you want a direct email to send to any that could actually get to me and Jason, just go to send an email to sales@datalocker.com. And Jason, I don't know if you want to type that in the chat box. Just for
it's on your next screen.
Is it on my next screen? There we go. Look at that. Boom.
I will throw in chat though, just so anyone that wants to copy paste that has like multiple monitors like me.
Exactly. So, yep, you can go directly to sales@datalocker.com. And like Jason said, we will be sending out a recording of this along with all of the articles that we talked about, the ebook that we talked about. You guys are getting a lot of stuff, okay? So you can never say that you didn't leave a DataLocker webinar and didn't get more stuff than what you came. Right? Is that the right way to say it?
Left empty-handed. Well, no, it's email, so they would be empty-handed. All right, guys, thank you so much. We don't want to take up any more of your time. We're a little bit over. Appreciate all of you. We'll be following up and talking with everyone. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. You guys have a blessed one. Talk to you soon.